Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Harika. So in previous video we have seen how to create how to get the folders from the orchestrator using postman, right? So in this video I'm going to show you how we can do the same by using HTTP request. So in order to understand that, firstly you should have a prior knowledge on this videos that I'm showing over here. So how you can access these videos, just go to my channel. On my channel you can see the playlist. So under playlist you have something called orchestrator API postman. Just go in there and you can see all these playlists, all these videos under this playlist. So this video is a continuation of what we have seen earlier. So without that prior knowledge you wouldn't be able to understand the concepts clearly. So I would suggest you please watch at least first this how to authenticate using HTTP and how to get the folders using postman. So having said that, after that you will be having all this information with you, and from here I'm going to pick up the video which will be useful for doing the orchestrator API calls. So I'm going to studio and show you practically what are we going to learn in this video. So I'm gonna debug the file. So we have seen how to get the folders from the orchestrator cloud tenant by using the postman, right? So in this video, I am going to show you how we can get that using HTTP request. So if you see, I have got all the folders that are there on my orchestrator. So it shows total count is 11. So we have already seen earlier. Let me show you again. So this is my orchestrator tenant. So I have 11 folders in total. So it shows 11. So how we can do that, how we will get it, I'll recreate the video step by step and I'll help you understand. So for that, let me take a workflow. So I'm going to get the folders by using HTTP request. Okay, so before getting the folders, what we have done in the postman, so that's very crucial. So we have used the authentication, right? So for that, let me pull up the workflow that I already have for authentication. So I'm going to do nothing new here. I am just trying to get the, okay, where we have the authentication here. We have done the authentication. Okay, so this is my authentication. So what I'm going to do using my HTTP request, I'm having here the HTTP request. I'm taking the output of it and I'm fetching the JSON. So with this we have seen in the earlier video. So I'm going to use the same things here. Okay, so if you want to learn what we have done here, please do watch the video. You can able to get it clearly. So I am doing the authentication, and after I do the authentication, I'll get something called as barrier key, right? So just get the same thing. So how you can use it in your project is just exactly the same. So I am getting the token key here. So what exactly I'm going to do here is this token key I'm going to use in order to get the folders. Okay, so for that I have to use a HTTP request. So just pull in the HTTP request here. So from here I'm going to show what exactly we are doing. So go to your postman. In the postman we have used this particular URL to get all the folders, right? Just copy this URL and come to this wizard, just paste it. And if you see here, go to the response preview. Okay, so if you see, it shows you are not authenticated. Okay, and also the request method is get as per our postman, right? It shows not authenticated because we have to give in the headers. In postman we have given a authorization. If you remember, we have given a barrier key, which is the one we are getting from the authentication request. Okay, so we have to provide a barrier key. So how to provide this barrier key? If you go to headers, once after you give the authorization, you can find something called barrier key. So if you see here, go to the headers, and if you see, it shows you are not authenticated. Okay, authorization. Okay, just copy this, and what you can do is you can either going to parameters, you can either add it as a header, or else I will show you how you can do the other way. Okay, I'm just saying okay, and if you see here, just scroll it down, you can see something called as headers. Okay, so I'm gonna create an argument here which is authorization, and I am going to copy this whole barrier key and just paste it under a string. Okay, so this is one way, but you have to remember this access token, whatever we are passing, the access token inside the headers, that will be valid only for 24 hours or 48 hours. Okay, so that value will be changing, right? So in order to keep it constant, what I'm going to do, let's see here. So I'm fetching the access token from here, right? So I'm going to take a assign activity and just drop it here. Just create one variable, string variable. Okay, so I'm going to create one string variable, and what does that string variable actually holds? It holds the access token. Okay, so what it says, j token to string. Okay, let's convert this to string. Okay, this is perfect, right? So every time whenever we do an authentication call, it's gonna give me the new access token, whatever is refreshed. I have said you, right, it will be refreshed by using the refresh token. So whatever the new token we are getting, that will be saved into str token. So now what's the thing, we have to go into the http request under headers, just scroll to headers. Under headers, what I'm going to do here, instead of giving this as a static value, I'm going to take it from the str token. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a string concat, and here I am going to keep barrier as it is because that will be constant, and here I'm going to concatenate it with what, str token. Okay, and I'm gonna remove the rest of all the token that I had. Okay, so I'm going to concatenate it with barrier, and every time whenever I get the token, new token, refresh token, I'm going to pass it over here. So that's it. And what's the other thing that we have passed in the postman is just that replicating whatever we have done in the postman. Okay, so this is one thing, and we have given the authorization. So just did the send, and that has provided us with the 200. Okay, and it has provided us with the number of the folders that are there, and or also the IDs that each folder is consisting along with the names. Okay, so now this also should give us the output in the same format. So for that, let's go and give the output variable here. Okay, what's the output variable? So we have to get the folders. Okay, so I'm getting the folders and the status code. Okay, and to see the output, what I'm going to do, just take in the log message and just give get folders, and here I'm going to see the status code, the last one. Okay, so that's it. So now I am going to debug the file, and we will see how exactly it is processing. So we have done everything which is the same as that we have done in the postman. So if you have understood that concept, this is very similar, and that nothing new we have done. Okay, so if you see, it has executed successfully and given us the status code 200, and it has given us the total count as the 11 folders, and also we could see Okay, let me do one thing. We all know how we can do the deserialization, right? So this string, I'm going to pass it into deserialize, and we will see the output there, so that we can retrieve the ID of the each folder, and also it will be clear for us to understand. So I'm going to pass the get folders, and here I'm going to use something called get folders JSON object. Okay, J object. And I'm going to use a log message, and here the format will be clear for us so that we can view things clearly. So I'm just going to print that JSON object. So now let's debug this and see. And now I'm also going to show you how you can retrieve the ID. You might already be clear if you have watched how we can do the deserialize JSON and deserialize JSON array activities. Okay, so let me go over here and you can say everything clearly. Okay, so this is the format that it has written us. This is perfect, right? Very clear to understand. So if you see, it's a string and we have converted that into JSON. So if you just not sure how we can do that, I have created a very clear video on how you can do that. So just go to API automation, and here in API automation you can just learn everything right from the scratch. So here in the, there's a third video that it explains about this particular function, which is deserialize JSON and deserialize JSON array for different formats of JSON, so you can easily understand everything right from the scratch. So if you have watched that, this would be very easy for you. And we have seen that this is a array, right? So this is a array. Inside the value we have this ID. So how we can fetch this ID? Let's go and check that. Okay, so firstly I have to fetch the value. From after the value only I can fetch the IDs. Okay, so for that what I'm going to do, so let's pull this. So inside this you can see, okay, let me copy this whole thing so that we can put it in a notepad and see how we can fetch the ID. Okay, so if you have watched that video, you can clearly understand that this whole is a JSON, and the values what are here, these are the arrays. Okay, this is one array, this is another array. So what is the first requirement? First we have to fetch the values out of this. So for that what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a JSON, deserialize JSON. Okay, so let me go to the studio, and here what I'm going to do, so for this, what I have to take deserialize JSON. So for the deserialize JSON, I have to pass the JSON string. So for that, I'm taking get folders of the value. Okay. So what this will return to me, you just observe. We'll just see. Okay, get folders itself is a string, right? So here we have to take something output of this one. So because we cannot perform some like these kind of operations on a string, it's just a string. So what I'm going to do, whatever the value that I'm getting after deserializing from here, I'm gonna pass the token. What is the token here? Value. So that value I'm passing, and this should return me the values. Okay, just give get values of J object. Okay, so let's observe what it is returning. So let's keep a log message to monitor. Keeping the log message here. It's very interesting concept if you will learn everything right from the basics. So I have created a very clear video on that. So you can just explore and see what are the different formats that we have. Okay, so I'm going to put a breakpoint here so we can observe the output. Okay, so once after we get the values, whatever the values that it is returning, it's a format array. Okay, so Let's do a step into. Okay, it has thrown an error because if you see here, it's a type of array, right? So in order to get the values from the array, we have to take it into a JSON array. So let me, this error I have shown you in the previous video also, if you have watched the Deserialize JSON array video. So let's take this one here. So this is returning us an array of objects. So just take this value. Oh, let me copy this properly. So you should understand why we are getting this error. So only we can learn more. Then only we can understand the whole real concept here. So this is returning an array. Okay. So we can say, okay, I already have an okay object, but that is an object. So I'm gonna get values j array. Okay. So just put a breakpoint here and okay, let's debug and see. So I intentionally made that error to make you understand why we have to use a certain activity alone. So now I am going to do a, oh sorry, I did a step over, but it's okay. So did it give the output? Yes, right? So it has given an array. So now what is the requirement? Now let's stop it and see. I wanted to fetch the ID of each of that particular element. So how we can do that? Let's go and take for each, okay? In for each item in that particular array, what I'm going to do, I'm going to fetch the ID. So get value JArray. I'm gonna fetch that particular ID. So this you have to change to J token because we're dealing with an JSON array which is having the token values, right? So just change to this one. And after that, what I'm going to do, I'm gonna put a log message and I'm gonna get the name of that particular. So how you can get that? Each item consists of the display name. So let's go to the notepad. Here I'm having my notepad where I can get the display name. Okay, so I'm gonna get the display name. So for that I'm having item. Okay, in that item I wanted to get the display name as well as I wanted to get the ID. Okay, so it will show me the ID of that particular folder. Okay, so item. So we are getting the IDs of all the folders. Okay, so ID. Just copy this. Okay, it's clear, right? Let me take two straight. So I'm gonna debug and we will see the 11 items should come up here. Perfect, right? So here we can see all the folders and the IDs corresponding to that folders. So if we wanted to do any editings or get a particular folder with respect to ID, because ID is unique. So if you want to get a particular folder with respect to ID, you can just use these IDs and that will do certain action over this particular folder. So this is how we can perform. I hope this is clear. Just to reiterate what we have seen till now. So the first and the foremost thing is this is a continuation video. So to make this concept understand for you, you first have to watch the previous videos. Without that knowledge, you cannot understand things clearly. So firstly, we are doing the authentication. And I said you this access token will be refreshed. So in order to keep it constant all the time, we are taking that that and passing into HTTP request as a argument. Okay, here under headers we are passing it as an argument by accessing it every time as in when it comes from the authentication. So how we are passing that, we're just taking into the headers under authorization. So for this to understand, you should have the postman knowledge, how we have done it in the postman and how we have taken the same approach here. So once after that's done, we have seen how we are getting the folders. So as and when we get the folders, the HTTP request gives the string as an output, right? So to make it convenient and to fetch the values out of it, we have to pass it in the deserialize JSON. So after passing this into deserialization, we have seen how the object is retrieving. So based on the format of the object, we have used deserialize JSON array. Why? Because here we have seen under values, this is an array of objects. So under this array, we wanted to fetch the ID, correct? So for that, we should pass it as it is returning an array. To hold an array, we should have an output which, you know, which takes an array. So this is an output that takes an array, which is JSON array, right? So we have used a deserialized JSON array and we have passed this as the input for this, which is a string. And after that, for each value inside this array, we are fetching the items, whichever it is required for us for the timing. Apart from that, you can also retrieve any of this, like provision type or permission model, whatever you want, or the key. You can get everything based on your requirement. And it is fetching me all the folders and the IDs that I have in my orchestrator. So this is perfect, right? So in this video, we have seen everything, how to get the folders and how to do orchestrator API calls to the orchestrator, and by using the HTTP request and to fetch the IDs. Okay. So in the next video, I'm going to show how we can create a folder. Before to that, please do watch all the previous videos and make sure that you have the concept handy. Then you can clearly understand everything. So if you like the video, please do give a thumbs up and also do let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you find any questions over here, please do let me know. I'd like to answer them and also give a solution for you. And thank you so much for watching. Do subscribe to my channel. That gives me a lot of strength to do next videos.